Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the BVB podcast. My name is Carver. Jacob is unfortunately unavailable tonight, but we have a long-time friend back on the show, and it's been a little while now. Ryan Straub. Ryan, my friend, how are you?
I'm doing good. It's been an interesting season so far, so I'm excited to chat. And like you said, it's been a hot minute since I've been on. So yeah, curious to talk about the games that we're going to talk about and everything else, and to hear your thoughts on the season so far.
Sounds good. Yeah, no, we've kind of needed a much-needed break, and I say that every season here for Dortmund whenever we do eventually get those breaks, whether it's the new season or just for the winter pause. Either way, we will be covering the thrilling but ultimately disappointing 3-3 result against Frankfurt, as well as Bremen in a midweek football game that is not either international for Champions League or even Pokal at this point. Caught me by surprise. And we'll talk a bit about what needs to happen in this window, whether it's tactical adjustments, personal adjustments, signings, anything that we need to see necessary for Dortmund to have a successful Ruckrunde second half of the season. And let's start by taking it back here to the weekend. Just a few days ago, we're recording here on Tuesday evening, where Dortmund traveled to the Deutsche Bank Park in the reverse fixture at the start of this new year. And Eintracht Frankfurt, kind of similar like you were mentioning, Brian, with Dortmund. I mean, a little up and down here, and Frankfurt's definitely on the rocky end of that for sure. And they remain competitive in games like this. And you saw that even with the reverse fixture in the Pokal, as Topmoller's side has only won a single game of their last 6 in the Bundesliga. But despite their poor run of form, this is a tough game. Playing away at Frankfurt is never an easy task. It's actually a very, very tough game for Borussia Dortmund. We've only won, I think, like 1 or 2 of the last 5 or 6 meetings, if I'm not mistaken, going to Deutsche Bank Park. But either way, Brian, did you have any initial thoughts going into this game?
I mean, going into the game, kind of like what you said, this is a good team. Games against Frankfurt aren't traditionally easy for Dortmund. This is a talented Frankfurt side with the likes of Can Uzun, Ritsu Doan, Nathaniel Brown, to name a few, Hugo Larsson as well. And there's a lot of parallels to Dortmund as well, because there's a lot of former Dortmund players there. You have Ansgar Knauff, Mario Götze, Namdi Collins. There's a whole litany of
Dahoud. We can keep going.
Dahoud. Yeah, I mean, well, how can I forget Dahoud when he's the one who scored? But yeah, I mean, there's so many connections, and I feel like this game always has a special feel because of that. There's definitely another level to it. But on top of that, this is just in general, despite a struggling side, a side packed with talent. So it was never going to be easy for Dortmund. I mean, overall thoughts on the game, once it was transpiring, the way that Frankfurt was able to break us down through the middle was very concerning, especially in the first half. You had, I think, by the time the half was over, you had both Nicholas Sula and Valdemar Anton on yellows because of tactical fouls, basically, because they couldn't cope. And we kind of talked about that with the guys yesterday on our pod as well. And we were kind of just saying, well, it's defense, but it's also, partially the midfield there then too. That was something the guys brought up in terms of how easy it was for Frankfurt to walk through that midfield and put the defense under the cosh as they did. So, I mean, overall, it was a very sloppy game defensively, I would say. And when we were dealing with Frankfurt on the break, going forward, though, I mean, we did score 3 goals. Maxi Bayer with that finish, I think, was fabulous to see. Anyone who listens to our pod or has listened to whenever I've been on the show with you guys knows that I love Maxi Bayer. I think he's a fantastic player. So for me, that was an automatic highlight of the game. And I was just very happy to see him do well and put that away. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, going into it, you knew it was going to be a tough game. Initially, when I was thinking about what the score might be, I was thinking it would be a win regardless. I thought maybe a 3-1 or something like that. Maybe even a 3-2 might be fairly sound as predictions. But yeah, I mean, it was just interesting because if you look at the parallels between the Hinrunde and Ruckrunde, we started the Ruckrunde exactly how we started the Hinrunde, away from home with a 3-3. So, I mean, good or bad? I mean, listen, at the end of the day, there's 2 ways to look at this, right? You can look at it as 2 points lost and, an unnecessary draw, or look at it in the sense that in this case, we were the ones coming back and getting the last gasp goal to make sure that we came away with something. At the end of the day, it is also an away game, so I mean, it's automatically going to be tougher. And I do think, we'll obviously talk about Bremen a little bit more later on, but I do think the reaction kind of, I guess, nullifies a little bit of the disappointment I had, just because we were able to rebound and get a good result after that. But yeah, I mean, as good as the defense has been all season, I feel like there's just something to be taken away from this game in terms of for Kovac. I mean, to take a look at that and really see if we can shore up in some way, shape, or form there, because it is concerning how easy it was for Frankfurt to come and kind of cut the team open. For I believe it was the second goal, and I might be mispronouncing his name, but Ebnu Talib, I believe it is. He was doing really well in the second division, and he comes up and he's able to his debut against Borussia Dortmund in the Bundesliga, and he's able to go ahead and score. And I believe the assist was from Kalimundo as well. And just how open, I guess, we were for that was also very concerning. But yeah, I mean, once again, at the end of the day, like I said, two ways to look at it. After today's result, I feel a little bit better. But that's the end of my rant on that.
Yeah, it was nice to get 3 points on a quick return on that one. You brought up a lot of great points. Just to touch on a few, and starting with the midfield, and that's definitely been a concern of mine as well. And I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the show, but Pascal Gross just recently returned back to Brighton, where he initially came from just a season ago. So we miss a center midfielder there. Nothing of insane quality by any means, but Gross did provide, I mean, a dozen assists in just one season?
14.
Yeah, I mean, it's over a dozen, which is very impressive. And he's been involved in a handful of other great moments in just a short stint here at Borussia Dortmund. But outside of that, Joe Bellingham suspended. Sabitzer is next in line for that starting 11 in the midfield. Outside of that, I mean, you can keep poking around and playing with the front three, but it's a pretty standard Dortmund lineup of what you're looking at for this point. And frenetic feel at the start of the game. I mean, for both teams really just, they're coming in, performing a lot of intense actions. And it was a promising start with an early goal from Bayer, like you mentioned. I've had my criticisms of Bayer this year, but I'm always happy to see him get on the score sheet because I want our strikers scoring goals. It kind of comes in ebbs and flows of who's going to be informed depending on what the week is. But, you know, I'm glad to actually get on the score sheet early here in this one. And yeah, Frankfurt are able to claw back in it. And you mentioned again, just not getting the 3 points after being in a winning position. And I looked, if I'm not mistaken, we conceded 9 goals in this season alone after the 90th minute. And that's also when we are in winning positions as well. So this is not just a one time, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times this happened this season where 90th minute comes along. We're trying to close the game out. We're in a pole position to win, and we end up actually drawing. Outside of those 9 goals, an additional 4 after the 75th minute when we are in winning positions to end up drawing a game. And Kovac mentioned this in the post game for Bremen, and it's a lot of different ways you can look at it, right? Like, because the stats, you can just keep going in all different directions. 1 loss in the entire first half of the season. Very, very solid. Dortmund haven't done that in a very, very long time.
Second best defense in the league.
Second best defense in the league. 6 draws on top of that, though. And whenever you could have been, at this point, with all those points that we dropped, I think it's 12 points in total dropped after being in winning positions. We could be above Bayern right now. You know, so it's tough to look at it in a number of different ways, like I mentioned. And we wasted the lead twice in this one as well. Guirassy was, again, his concern from the first half of the season really carried into this one. And we'll get into him scoring against Bremen, of course, but shadow of himself before this game. But in general, Kovac, I think he still had a go at Frankfurt, which I got to respect. And that's the concern I brought towards the first half of the season as well, is we need to be a bit more dominant in games. And I think Kovac did play a bit more bold. He did play more on the front foot, committing several numbers forward in the attacking half whenever we're in some of those progression phases, leaving literally just 3 or even 4 players in our third to actually progress the ball. You do have some quality players in those roles, like, you know, we're heavily going towards the left side, because of Schlotterbeck and his quality to not only shield off pressure, but to play incredible long passes if needed, diagonal balls. So that's been helping a lot to actually get more numbers forward. But we're lacking the quality in those other moments to actually execute the right individual intentions once we get into those attacking halves, once we get into the attacking third. So that was a concern for me in this game. And we still are unable to see out matches when we're in those winning positions as well. Shite defending those last few minutes. It's very frantic. You know, we have a half clearance and then we're not quick enough to step up. Very frustrating. But in the end, whenever you're looking at almost walking out of there with 0 points, you got to take the 1.
It almost feels like, kind of like what you mentioned, the shit defending. It almost feels like it's a theme, because a lot of the goals that teams, at least from what I've seen, and I guess this is the feeling I get from what I've seen, a lot of these goals have been very silly and just almost like avoidable. Like, I even think back to, granted this isn't Bundesliga play, but even the game against Leverkusen in the Pokal. The goal that Leverkusen score is just a frantic like scramble in the box. No one, like 3 Dortmund defenders aren't able to get to the ball, and it's poked in. So I'm just like, if you can clear up these mistakes, I guess that sort of like title of like second best defense in the league kind of starts to look a little bit better. So it does feel like a lot of this stuff is like on an individual level. I mean, I know like even like Joe Bellingham, and granted this is not me trying to, rag on him or anything, but it's an example. Even he's had like a couple mistakes, like the own goal in the Bayern game, like that was a bit unlucky, obviously. But it's little things like that that have kind of taken away from, kind of like what you were saying, how far up we could be in the table in terms of closer to Bayern or even possibly above them. So it's just been an overall interesting season. I will say though, I'm happy that we're definitely doing better than last year. So that's something to be happy about, right?
Yeah, which is crazy to think because, and maybe it's just me being a little pessimistic there, but it is crazy to think with the win against Bremen, Dortmund are finishing with 36 points right now as of, again, January 13th, and we're securing that second spot. And it would be I think, best first half season for Dortmund since the 18-19 season. And I think we had 42 points after 17 match days in that one. And that was under Favre at that time, whenever we went on to, unfortunately, not win the Meisterschale, but we were 9 points ahead or whatever it was in that season.
Close, but no cigar.
Yeah. But still, not enough at the end of the day for that season. But going into this one, like you mentioned, we just have to close out these games better. It's concerning that you look at these instances and there's just so many of these individual errors over and over. And at some point, I'm not saying it's got to be right now and it's clear as day, but when these continue over the course of an entire season, it doesn't look so much like as an isolated incident anymore. But I'm hoping, Kovac is very confident in the development of his team. He's been consistent with his messaging after games in those regards for quite some time now. So I'm hoping that there is some truth there and we will minimize those mistakes more and more. And of course, it's a great start and backing that up with 3 points against Bremen. But before we get into that, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on for this game specifically?
No, I think that was pretty comprehensive. Listen, at the end of the day, I mean, it was a very typical like Dortmund game. It encapsulated the season pretty well. It showed the best of us, and it also showed the worst of us. So offensively, the way we were able to finish through Bayer and goals that we did score, and I guess the emphasis we put on actually making sure we finished off the chances, like that was good. But on the flip side, we were very open at the back, and we kind of just let them in. And I mean, I guess just to mention this, because I know you mentioned Girassi earlier, I guess, do you want to talk penalty? Because that was an interesting play I felt from Girassi to try and clip the ball clip the player the way he did to try and get the ball out of the box. I guess that it didn't obviously help his cause in that. And I guess we'll get more into it, like you said, with the Bremen game. But I'm glad he was able to have a bit of a redemption from that, because I do think that if that penalty doesn't happen, I think maybe this game does have a little bit of a different ending. I do think we can get it and go on to win this game, because we did start strong, and I think that kind of did take the wind out of our sails. But yeah, like you said, individual mistakes seems to be the theme.
Not knowing how it was going to end, I think, is also a pretty good description of just Dortmund in the last few years. I mean, like, if you're ever really on the verge of a heart attack, you're probably watching Borussia Dortmund. At least if you're a supporter of them, of course. If you're from a neutral standpoint, you're like, oh,
yeah,
this is great.
No, neutrals probably love this game. I was just like, yeah, this is we need some calm here. Like, it's exciting and all that, but it should be exciting in one direction for us right now, not the way it's going.
It's pretty mutual exclusive there. Good stuff. Well, let's transition a little bit into Bremen here, who has yet to play a competitive match going into this Tuesday, actually. And funny enough, also has only won one of their last 6 Bundesliga games before Dortmund. So now it's 1-7, but they had no game at the weekend. They did have a friendly against St. Pauli. I think that drew 0-0. I don't know anything about that game, but either way, they have not had a competitive match in a few weeks now. So this is a big test for them going to Borussia Dortmund. No Benzabaini, despite him returning from the African Cup of Nations. Kovac did mention in the pregame press conference that they would assess how appropriate it would be to actually have him, but he, of course, did not show, which is fine. We have some other decent options here at the moment for that, but Bremen had a pretty decent game despite this 3-0 result. I mean, it looks like a thumping on paper, but they were able to put us under some pressure early on, create chances in transition early on, make me pretty nervous early on. But before I get more into that, did you have any thoughts?
So, I mean, I feel like we saw a little bit of the issues that we saw in the Frankfurt game once again in terms of like defensively, and I guess Bremen being able to walk through the midfield and put our defense under pressure. So we did see a bit of that. We did score early again, which was good. Nico Schlotterbeck getting that header, goals from set piece. I feel like Dortmund have been in the past not great at set pieces because I feel like the deliveries and the players delivering the ball in haven't really in past seasons done a great job of that. So whenever I do see a set piece goal go off for us, I'm like, that's something to be happy about, right? I really liked the fact that Kovac decided to switch up the lineup a little bit. Something that, me and the guys at Dortmund Dispatch have been talking a lot about is we definitely need to see a bit more rotation, earlier subs, and all that kind of stuff. So seeing Fabio Silva get the start, Carney Chukwuemeka get the start, Yan Couto get the start, all good things, in my opinion. All of them had, I guess, a mixed bag in terms of performances. I really, especially in the first half and going into the early portions of the second half, I really liked what I saw from Chukwuemeka and Silva together. I think it was the first half where they had that really intricate like set of like 1-2s that almost led to a Chukwuemeka goal. I also very much liked Silva's ball progression and distribution as well, because I think that led to a couple big chances as well. So it was good to see him, despite not scoring or assisting in this game, have a couple good plays. It showed what he can offer to the team. And I believe that those things are things that, for example, Guirassy cannot offer. He's far more mobile than Guirassy. He's able to have better interplay with his teammates than Guirassy.
Way more willing to defend as well.
Exactly. Just overall pace here and able to pop up in more positions, in my opinion. At the end of the day, Guirassy is a fantastic goal scorer, but I do think that last season and going to this season, he had a lot of minutes. He played on injury a lot. And I think the only way to allow him to get back to form isn't, forcing him into the starting 11. It's giving him those minutes to rest. It's giving other players the opportunity to come in and show that he doesn't have to carry the burden fully himself. So I liked a lot of what I saw there. Yan Couto had a decent game as well. I will say that he did have, I guess, some physical struggles, I guess I would say, in the defending part of his game, especially in the first half. I felt like he got bullied a lot by Bremen's attackers. There was like one sequence of play where he tried to take the ball down and I forget who it was exactly, but one of the Bremen players basically outmuscled him and was able to recycle the ball, and a cross went into the box. Thankfully, nothing happened from it, but regardless, I feel like that's something that, that's just something that, Kovac needs to take into account as well. I might be in the minority in this as well, but I'd also like to see Couto played a little bit further up, because I think his passing is quite good. He's fairly explosive, and his crosses are great too. So I feel like playing more so in like a wing position might benefit him. It's just that when he plays in that wing back position, he does seem to get out-muscled quite a lot. So that would be my like one concern. And yeah, I mean, overall, keeping a clean sheet is great. And what I saw from the interplay and the attacking play was also good. And I do think it's great that Guirassy was able to score, because that will hopefully help him get some confidence back. So overall, I think this game was a net positive, not just because of the scoreline. It's because we got to see a lot more from players that usually don't get those types of minutes on the pitch. And I think this game was a great opportunity for that. So I applaud Kovac for that. And I think the game coming up against St. Pauli is also going to be a very good opportunity for that. So, I mean, overall, very, very happy with the performance today.
Yeah, the collective football generally wasn't the greatest, and Kovac definitely mentioned that in the post game. It wasn't anything super convincing, and supporters and staff alike mentioned that, and supporters made their voices heard that they were not satisfied with that. But you saw I've thought some pretty clear progression going through this game, definitely in the second half. Scored 2 goals from open play in the second half. Bremen remained competitive throughout the 90, but we did limit them to just a single shot on target in the second half and a total of like 0.10 XG. So, we're limiting chances, and we're also minimizing our own mistakes as well. We're tending to be our own worst enemy. And I think the second half was a step in the right direction for actually putting these games to bed a bit more early, because we've seen at home against Bremen up 2-0 before, and it doesn't obviously work out in the end. And yeah, Guirassy puts the game to bed eventually at the end. And it was a fortunate touch that came to him, yes, but as the game goes on and we're still winning and the margin is 2 goals, Bremen are going to continue committing numbers forward. You're going to find a little bit more space, and Guirassy did exactly that. So it was fortunate, yes, but that's exactly what a number 9 does. They're finding themselves in the right positions at the right time. And he can hopefully, like you mentioned, use this moment to grow some confidence, stretch his legs, and get back to form, because we need a number 9 that's going to routinely score goals at this point. Because you're looking at just something as basic and narrow as perspective as like looking on FOTMob for the past like month and a half, right? You look at the team performances overall, somewhat over 7, and then you look at Gersi, not really doing much. We need a player that's actually going to consistently provide up front, and hopefully this is going to be him taking the second half of the season in a much different direction. I wanted to mention on Silva too, I mentioned already, but his handful of defensive efforts was definitely noted as well. Very good use of his energy as the focal point of attack. Dortmund need that a lot in times. I'm fairly satisfied with his development as well. Sabitzer found himself in a very familiar position to score on a volley today. I think when you look throughout his career, he's scoring lots of goals like that. And in general, when you look in this season for Dortmund, goals are coming from a very specific spot. It's either like right at the penalty area or just on the edge of the 18 in that central channel. So, and obviously the coaching staff know this, but our goals are coming from very similar spots, and we're going to continue putting players in positions to be in a good chance to succeed. I'm glad Sabitzer was, able to find himself a goal as well, a good goal. And at the end of the day, could have been a very different game if Bremen put those chances away early on. I mean, Justin Jinma, another former Dortmund player, he could have picked his head up in that first quarter hour. It was a 2-on-1 with the keeper.
Yeah, that was definitely scary. And I mean, we also had, like, I guess we already kind of mentioned this, but the defensive lapses once again. I mean, the pass from Valdemar Anton out to, I believe it was Carney Chukwuemeka, that got intercepted and basically almost led to a goal as well. I mean, once again, these individual errors that players are making is something that needs to be definitely curtailed. And I think once again, overarching theme. I think if we do that, everything else looks better. But yeah,
good stuff. Yeah, I don't have much else on this game. Again, Tuesday afternoon, I'm in the middle of work. I completely forgot we played, so I'm trying to watch as much as I can.
Yeah,
take some notes here, but I'm just glad we got the 3 points. It's
Yep.
away at home is always going to be PTSD for me, and I'm glad that we were able to go up on the board and secure our spot in second still. Leverkusen dropped big points recently to Stuttgart. Frankfurt dropped big points again. So, we still got a gap to shorten between us and Bayern, sure, but, Kovac, we were hoping we were going to even just get top 4 at the beginning of the season, and now second place looks very, very likely. We still got 4.5 whatever months to go, of course, but we're in pole position right now, so we just have to keep chugging along.
To the rest, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The only other thing I had on here, remember, we're still in the winter break for BVB Frauen. There are no women's games here, or at least competitive games in their division here for another month or so, if I'm not mistaken, a little under 2 months. So I just wanted to look at going forward for the men's professional side. I don't mean to be simplistic, but I'm wondering what we can do to just simply improve again, whether it's tactical adjustments, personnel adjustments, any signings that you think are necessary, what roles we're looking for that need, improvement and just more reinforcements in, because Gross left, Ozchan's out the door, that's in the midfield alone, but there's a few other departments you could look at that needs to be serious investment in. And I was just curious what your thoughts were.
Well, so I mean, overall, winter is more difficult. Obviously, the market is a lot more difficult. Clubs are more reluctant to sell, and prices are usually a lot higher for you to be able to get players out of their contracts and sign them and all that stuff. So, I mean, do I expect Dortmund to do anything really in the winter transfer window? Probably not. I mean, we've been linked with Oscar Bob, Quinton Timber, which, in my opinion, is a fantastic player. Timber, I mean, Oscar Bob as well, but Timber is definitely a player I've had my eye on for a while, and kind of hoped that Dortmund would develop some sort of interest in this player. But yeah, I think a midfield reinforcement like Timber would be great. I think that's more so something that, we'd look to see happen in the summer. But if they could manage it in the winter, I think it'd be great. I do think Dortmund as a whole still seem to rely on Felix Nemecha to, I guess, play that 6 role, even though, maybe it might be, a better idea to look for a more natural 6 to play in that position. But if we are looking to keep Nemecha more so in that position, I do think a player like Timber would be very great. This is a very versatile player, really good ball control, good eye for a pass, very physical, can play multiple positions. Yeah, I can't speak highly enough of this player, and I think he would really up our game a lot. So I think that would be a great signing. Once again, I think that if anything, that would be something that happens in the summer. But this is a player that this season, I believe, has 4 goals and 3 assists in all competitions. And from the 8 position, I think it was in the, and I'm going to check this before I get this wrong, because I have this down actually. I just want to make sure I get it right here. I think it was the 2023 season that he had 8 goals and 10 assists. So, I mean, this is, yeah, like this is a player that is able to produce from that position. So I think he would be a fantastic addition. We kind of did a little bit of a wish list, I guess, going into the second half of the season on Dortmund Dispatch. And one of the main things that we talked about, aside from transfers or anything like that, was more rotation. And I think this game kind of showed that does pay dividends. You were able to bring on Girassi, and he's fresh off the bench and is able to contribute. Daniel Svensson, when he came on, was very lively as well. He's a player that's had so many minutes, so I'm so glad that he was able to get a rest. So I think that more rotation and quicker substitutions, I think, were the main things that we talked about. Because I think with Kovac, he really does like to leave it late to the 75th minute. At that point, I feel like you're not really giving substitutes as much time as I guess you would want them to be able to have an impact. And it's putting a strain on players. And I think that both Girassi and the other strikers up front, need to be rotated so that all of them can be confident, all of them can be sharp, not overplayed, not have too much minutes, especially players like Silva, because as we've kind of talked about, this is a player that can offer a lot, but he does need the minutes to bed into the team. And the more I feel like we give him, the more I guess we see from him. And I feel like this game was a good example of that. So yeah, overall, I don't see much in terms of signings, but Timber I think would be a great signing if possible. And yeah, more rotation and quicker substitutions. Those are the things that I think would help quite a bit.
Yeah, I've mentioned before a few things I think we already can and should be improving in, which is just closing out games. We'd be top of the table had we done that already. And it's easier said than done, of course. But we just have to be putting those games to bed there. And whenever we are winning positions. When we talk about just performances in general, I think and I mentioned this before too, but attackers need to improve their individual intentions of holding play and relieving pressure whenever we are late in games, whether we are in winning positions or not. But these half clearances, nonsense in the box, clearing and chasing, inviting more pressure, inviting more crosses, inviting more set pieces. This is going to continue giving us the same result. And whenever we can focus on a player, whether that's a new signing or just focusing on a player that we already have that can hold the ball, pick out a pass, or even just draw a foul, a Sancho-like player, I think that would be vital for us actually relieving some pressure in those late games, in those dying moments, whenever we have the ball, whenever we win the ball, and it's in transition, whatever it is. But we have to be smarter whenever we do have the ball in those moments. And then whenever we are against it, and I mentioned it too, step up quicker, challenge quicker, easier said than done. But also you look at the defending in the moments like Frankfurt and plenty of other times this season, like teams are scoring from outside the box against us. They're scoring from weird angles. Dahoud is not the first person or second person this season to score a goal like that whenever it's completely unnecessary. So, once we start just weaving those mistakes out too, we will continue getting all 3 points instead of just one. And something on the other end that I think we actually have done pretty well is just, again, putting players in positions to score. This is another great example with Sabitzer today. But again, across the board this season, all of our goals have come from just 1 or 2 positions, really. I mean, a few here and there that might be in the 6 or just outside the box, but they are really just in one of those 2 positions in that central channel. So if the staff are recognizing this, but they can continue to implement in their game plans. There's plenty of players on this team that can hit them from those short to medium ranges there. And we should be exploiting that quality and that talent. And in terms of the signings outside of a winger, like I mentioned, a 6, I think that's absolutely crucial, like you mentioned too. If it's not this window, it has to be in the next one. We do overly rely on Mecha, and I love Job. I think he could be a good, solid partnership between those two. I said that a few times as well. But there has to be some rotation, like you mentioned. Gross is out the door. Best years of Sabitzer are behind him as well.
Ostjan probably leaving.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. So there should be improvement there. And then in the back line, center halves, year 3 now, and we're still saying the same thing. Anselminho's got an injury, and while he's definitely quality, I'm not sure how feasible or realistic it looks for him to actually be here on a permanent move. And therefore, we should be looking at other options. I know Sula is probably out the door as well, so you have 2 of our 3 starting center backs there. There needs to be, I think, someone that's going to be a starter in this team, and then someone that we could be developing a little bit more long-term. And I don't think both is crazy to assume, really. I mean, even if you just get 2 center backs and then 2 more signings, 4 is not that crazy, especially whenever they don't need to be on these enormous fees. I'm not asking for players that are in the 25 plus million range. I forget his name. What's the center back for Southampton? Actually, he came from Greuther Fürth just a season ago. He's only like 20 or 21 years old. Played a good amount of minutes in the championship this season so far. And I think, he could be coming back to Germany, and he could be someone that we could be developing. He's got a big frame in him. He's like 6'5". So that could be an option right there, just for, again, someone to be rotating a bit more and getting some regular minutes on a permanent move, and not just bolstering up other clubs around Europe with these loans. That would be just the 2 or 3 things that I would focus on personally.
And then on top of that, there's also the issue of Nico Schlotterbeck, because you still don't know what's going to happen with him.
Well, I'm just praying on that one. I'm just sitting here like this.
I mean, aren't we all? But I mean, at the end of the day, it's still unclear what he's going to do. So you might end up having a situation where you have 3 defenders out the door. And granted, in a situation like that, I guess, I'm not saying necessarily that this should be the case or anything, because, for example, like you mentioned, Anselmo, I do like him quite a bit, and I think he'd be a great addition if we could keep him long term. If, for example, a player like Schlotterbeck leaves, depending on the fee you get, use part of that fee to possibly sign a player like Anselmo. If he has a good second half of the season, continues on, what he's been showing so far, and then you get another player as well. I mean, that'll be crucial as well. You still don't know what's going to happen with Karim Adeyemi as well. Here and there you hear about things. I think the most recent things I saw from Bild were that Manchester United and I forget the other club. There's Man U and another club were interested, which once again it's Bild. Take that with a grain of salt. There's also been talks about clubs being interested in Nemecha as well. So once again,
Mecha would be a great signing for United, honestly.
Well, there you go.
At least under Amorim, but
yeah. And once again, then the midfield becomes even more pertinent because you're going to be losing Ozcan. You might lose a player like Mecha, then a player like Timber. It makes even more sense. We could come the summer end up with a lot of construction sites and a lot of things that we need to fix and gaps we need to fill with players leaving. For the second half of the season, I think Dortmund need to, if we're talking about things that they need to do to make sure that they have a good season and a good future moving forward, they really need to pull out any stop they can to make sure that Schlotterbeck stays. I think above all else, that is the most important player right now for them to tie down to a long-term contract.
Wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, if you can get that across the line, that helps you out a lot. And that could help morale. Like, let's say I'm not saying this is going to happen because we don't know. I mean, there's been talk about, Dortmund wanting an answer by the end of January. But let's say by the end of January, Nico Schlotterbeck signs a new long-term deal. That's a massive morale boost. That can spur this team to go on and do something, or play a lot better in the second half of the season. I'm not going to say there's going to be a miracle or we're going to catch Bayern or anything like that. But it can improve our performances and set us up well for the coming year. So, there's a lot to think about for Dortmund's higher ups right now, and it's going to be an interesting Ruckrunde, I think. So buckle up; it's going to be a bumpy one.
And I know we're not going to be making any money whenever we lose Niklas Süle, but at the same time, he's on double-digit salary, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of room for us to play with as well. So lots of different ways to proceed here.
And Guirassy as well. I completely forgot about that, but there's been so much talk about him possibly leaving as well. So you might end up having some money from that sale as well. Considering his form this season, I feel like I'm not opposed to it at this point, considering there's been so much talk. He's
29 as well.
Yeah, it seems like he and his entourage have been sounding out the market as well. So I mean, if you can move him on and get a decent fee for him, I mean that's also money you can play with. Granted, that does mean we're in for another rebuild, but considering where we're at, I wouldn't be opposed to it at this point.
And that's not to say 29 is super old by any means, but I'm just saying,
not at all.
He's born in March, so he's on the verge of 30, right? And I just think we could be looking at other options, is all I'm saying. And like you mentioned with the forum as well, I would definitely, and we got him for our release clause of 17.5 as well. So we'll be making a profit either way. We'll be definitely making more than that.
And it's not like we don't have any strikers. We do have Maxi Bayer and Fabio Silva. Karim Adeyemi's played more as a striker under Kovac as well in games. And honestly, once again, I don't know if I'm the majority or minority on this, but I really love when we've played with a front two. And I think we have the tools right now at our disposal to play in a front two. And obviously Guirassy is able to do that as well. But having 3 players like Adeyemi, Bayer, Silva that are able to play in those positions and adding possibly another young profile onto that as well could be really exciting. So, I mean, yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, good stuff. That's all I have here. Brian, I really appreciate your time. It's always fun chatting with you. I know, too, it's been I can't remember the last time even whenever Jacob and I recorded. It could have been a break, could have not been, honestly.
It was a while ago.
Either way, it's good to be back. I appreciate everyone checking in and tuning in with us. Happy New Year. If we haven't even recorded since the New Year, I'm all over the place for this. Now I get the difficulty that Jacob has with signing off here. But Brian, do you have anything you'd like to plug or anything that else you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, I mean, check us out at Dortmund Dispatch. We release episodes every week. I'm still writing for GGFN every now and then, so putting out articles on Dortmund and Frankfurt there, so you can check out my work there. But yeah, other than that, just thank you for having me on, Carver. Always happy to be on and chat with you guys. And yeah, hoping to be on again soon.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Brian. Thank you to the listener. Make sure to give our show a rating if you like it. Join our Discord if you want, and we will see you later. Appreciate it.